Disney has been churning out remakes like it is no one's business. Well, except theirs. You get the point. They've become a monopolistic machine determined to rake over the ashes of old ideas. The trouble is, all their remakes keep making money. Even more ironic is some of them actually deserved commercial success. Face it, there are some bright gems amongst the heap of remakes we've seen. It's time to give a few a closer inspection. So before Mickey Mouse's creative clubhouse starts remaking the remakes into Remakeception, let's go over the good, the bad, and the ugly. You're gonna notice a trend in these first few entries, so feel free to point it out in the comments below. We've started with Dumbo for a few reasons. First and foremost, it shows Disney doesn't learn its lesson. Tim Burton was given a chance to reboot another Disney film franchise that we'll get into a bit later in the list. The point is, he didn't succeed then, so why would he now? Let's get to the meat of the issue: how Dumbo stands next to its animated counterpart. After all, it's the whole reason we've put it this low on the list. Some viewers out there may argue that neither version is that great, but we're not buying it. The original Dumbo at least had a bit of Disney magic to it. Burton certainly stylized his vision, but it wasn't always for the better. All the Technicolor joy from the animated one was zapped out of existence. Just look at the pink elephants on parade scene in the remake. That moment there is all the proof you need. Oh, you know your movie was a flop when not even Beyoncé and Donald Glover can save it from falling flat. The cast, the story, the director, and even the producer had us believing this remake could cement itself as one of the best. In reality, we all ignored that nagging voice in the back of our head saying it's only animals in the movie, why remake it? We should have listened to that voice. Technology failed us on this one. What was supposed to be a sincere story about a young lion cub taking his place on the throne turned into something else entirely. When you look at it, Lion King feels way more like a nature doc spoof than a faithful remake. The worst part is, the new additions to the story added nothing. We could complain that it's a shot-for-shot remake, but that's not entirely true. However, when you actually compare scenes side by side, you'll notice the most significant issue. There is no emotion in these true-to-life animals. Turns out, we needed the Disney eyes to make this film work. Good news! We're starting to get past the worst of the worst. As we move through this list though, you'll begin to see how we measure these films. It's too much to explain in one entry alone. But why is Aladdin ahead of Dumbo and The Lion King on the awful scale? Well, it's simple. It manages to not ruin the original. Both Dumbo and The Lion King fail at justifying their need. Aladdin squeezes through that hurdle. The trouble is, it doesn't pull off anything else. This movie is like inviting Winnie the Pooh to give a TED Talk. Nothing exciting or new is going to happen. You're in for a safe, reliable story. You can sit through the full 2-hour runtime of Aladdin and never find a reason to be there. It hits all of the same story beats as the original without any of the creative levity, and we haven't even brought up the CGI controversy. You really don't need to with Aladdin. It's a dull, safe remake. It didn't venture into parts unknown, and that saved it from the bottom of the list. Barely. There's a little bit of heart in the Beauty and the Beast remake. The problem is, it's hard to find under all the overdressed camp and show. It's odd. To the average viewer, Beauty and the Beast plays out like a film that wants to impress you, but that's making it worse. For once, a Disney remake actually gets points off for trying too hard to be unique. Emma Watson as Belle was an inspired but obvious casting choice. She manages to get something out of an iconic Disney princess. However, in hindsight, we bet she wishes she could have just apparated away from the set with her check in tow. Look, don't get us wrong, the cast and crew didn't want this film to flop, it just seems that every choice was the wrong choice. We feel our point is proven by the Be Our Guest number. Here is a song so iconic in the Disney discography that just touching it up would lead to success. Instead, the film plays around with it too much. It ends up coming off like a safety demonstration on a Virgin Airlines flight. Poor Tim Burton almost cracked the list of good remakes with this one. We did promise you we'd get to this film, but it was probably sooner than some of you hoped. Which is the odd thing about Alice in Wonderland. Some viewers might argue this film deserves a spot at the top. Of all the terrible Disney remakes, this one still gets supporters, which is why it's at the top of the list for bad remakes. Of all of the remakes, Alice in Wonderland is the least deserving of the title, but it was marketed to be a remake of the original. In reality, it expands on the lore of the animated film with an adult Alice taking her second trip down the rabbit hole. It's also worth noting that the film was at the peak of Hot Topic and Tim Burton's fame. The movie finds the right tone to hit. It's honest to the original, but occasionally strikes out too far on its own. The film shows flashes of brilliance, but then drags it all down with whatever this is. The 101 Dalmatians remake came out in 1996, 35 years after the animated film became one of Disney's top highest-grossing hits. Amazingly, it stands the test of time and holds the mark as the first successful remake for Mickey Mouse's studio. The trouble is, the film kind of stumbled into success. It wasn't a formula worth copying. The puppies weren't the standout of the remake. This movie came out at a time when they couldn't merely CGI the dogs to talk. They would have had to do a look who's talking kind of thing. So we got puppies that don't speak despite being the titular characters. So where does the movie succeed then? 3 words: Cruella de Vil. Glenn Close absolutely steals every scene she's in. She even got nominated for a Golden Globe for her part in the movie. The crew of the film knew the villain was as iconic as the Dalmatians. They leaned into scenes with her and it paid off. Close literally pulls this film out of the straight-to-DVD bin and into theaters. She earned this entry spot. Okay, the binger is about to stake a risky claim. Please do not throw anything at the screen. Remember, it's your laptop you're shouting at. Anyway, here it goes. Sleeping Beauty, the original animated movie, is thin on plot and character development. Alright, let's take a moment to explain ourselves. The film is beautifully animated, but it's a product of its time. It leaves a lot of plot left on the bone, which is why the Maleficent remake is refreshing. The film offered a unique perspective from an iconic villain. The world the story takes place in gets built out, and every character is given more time to grow. The theme is even elevated to a new position that helps Maleficent stand out. The best remakes help the original. You could watch this movie and then watch Sleeping Beauty and end up appreciating the animated film more. You can't do that with The Lion King or Aladdin. You end up wishing the remake had done more. Maleficent is the tide raising every boat in the harbor. The sequel, though, yikes. Yes, there are viewers out there that didn't even know that this was a remake. There are also some watching this video that forgot this film even happened. Pete's Dragon was a thing. What's even more impressive is that it's actually a good remake. Honestly, the 1977 animated film didn't give the team much to work with in the first place. Lucky for Disney, they made a great decision in hiring David Lowery for the project. Lowery's vision was best for the end product, but the short-term budgeting definitely had the producers worried. Face it, animating a dragon as big as Elliot was going to cost a lot. The good news is they didn't let that inflate the film out of a good story. Lowery succeeded by keeping to the original film's theme and building on the story. The cinematography and product design are ideal and the acting is spot on. The whole thing has a unique direction that elevates it from the original piece. The humor occasionally fails to land and kids will lose interest. The parts that work outweigh those negatives for sure. No one in their right mind thought that a Cinderella remake would ever work. The source material has been told and retold in several different ways. Even Hilary Duff got a stab at the role in her heyday. The point is, this story was a well-worn path that many didn't see a new direction for anytime soon. Somehow, someway, Sir Kenneth Branagh found the path forward. He took that classic animated tale and gave it modern magic. The film was a critical success. The production design, the visual effects, the costumes, and the cast all worked together to cast a spell on audiences everywhere. In short, this movie is everything Beauty and the Beast tried to be, but failed. Yes, there are some corny parts that cringe adults in the audience, but the target audience, kids, don't seem to mind. The movie manages to introduce new threads into the story and pay homage to both the animated film and the fairy tale origins. You walk out of Cinderella excited about the whole story. It elevates the work with respect. Props to this crew for this success. If you want to know why Aladdin, Dumbo, and The Lion King are so far down the list, This entry is precisely why. You can't help but compare them to The Jungle Book. The general audience was down and out on Disney remakes. Cinderella sparked the interest, but things diminished quickly. There was no hope for this Rudyard Kipling tale. But Jon Favreau proved everyone wrong again. If Iron Man wasn't proof enough that this guy can bring projects back to life, then let Jungle Book stand as further proof. The story is built out over a longer runtime and shaves out the songs and spots that didn't land the first time. We hate to say it, but the animated original wasn't the greatest project ever made. The remake used CGI to craft a compelling cast of support characters, while Neil Sethi was able to steal the show as Mowgli. The Jungle Book went out of its way to pay tribute to the original storyline. It is the best because it brings back a riveting story that no remake has done before or since. Things started out grim, but it only got better from there. Did you disagree with a remake's placement? Sound off in the comments down below. Plus, subscribe and like this video to support The Binger. Our subscribers know it's the only way to keep up with our daily content.